Scripture reading today is from the book of Mark, chapter 6, verses 1 through 6a. He left that place and came to his hometown, and his disciples followed him. On the Sabbath, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astounded. They said, "Where did this man get all this? What is this wisdom that has been given to him? What deeds of power are being done by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, and the brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us?" And they took offense at him. Then Jesus said to them, "Prophets are not without honor, except in their hometown and among their own kin and in their own house." And he could do no deed of power there, except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and cured them. He was amazed at their unbelief.
Continue with the book of Mark, chapter 6, verses 6b through 13. And this is the mission of the 12. Then he went about among the villages teaching. He called the 12 and began to send them out 2 by 2 and gave them authority over the unclean spirits. He ordered them to take nothing for their journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in their belts, but to wear sandals and not to put on 2 tunics. He said to them, "Wherever you enter a house, stay there until you leave the place. If any place will not welcome you and they refuse to hear you, as you leave, shake off the dust that is on your feet as a testimony against them." So they went out and proclaimed that all should repent. They cast out many demons and anointed with oil many who were sick and cured them.
May God bless the reading, hearing, and understanding of these words this morning. For the past couple of weeks, we have traveled with Jesus as he has been making his way across the land. We have walked with him as he gathered those around him, as he has had encounters with those who were proclaiming God's love before him. We have seen him calm the storm, heal the sick, and cast out the evil that has been dwelling within some. Everywhere we have traveled with him, crowds have gathered to see him, to watch him, to understand what it is that he does. People have seen what he can do. Many were amazed, they were astounded, some were in awe. But others have been less receptive, even angry or hostile towards him. But he has traveled with his disciples as they followed him, learning from him, watching what he does and how he reacts in the world, gaining the knowledge of how God is working through him for the betterment of all people. Through these travels, he has not been always greeted with the warmest welcomes, but he has never been greeted with cold shoulders either. People always came to see him until he makes his way home. And once he gets to the house, his hometown, the first thing he does is he goes to a synagogue and he begins to teach. And why not? Because that's what he had been doing all the time. The stories and the rumors about Jesus throughout the land have come and heard, and people know who he is. They understand what he's going to do when he gets there. And so today is no different. He starts to teach in the synagogue. He starts to tell people about his journey, his life, his love, his faith in God. And many who hear him, we are told, are astounded. And then they begin to ask themselves, where did all this wisdom come from? Where is this authority that he is preaching with? Where did he get that? Where did he get this power that he is giving off in front of us this morning? And then they remember who he is. He isn't someone that special. They think to themselves, wait a minute. We knew this kid. We saw him grow up. We know his parents. We know his siblings. We know this person. We've seen it. He's not this special. He can't be this special. At the beginning, they were astounded. At the end, they are taking offense. It's just good to be home. How great this must be for Jesus to be coming home and understanding that this is how he's going to be treated in his hometown. No one wants to feel that way. And Jesus says to them, prophets are not without honor, except in their hometown and among their own kin and in their own house. There was a song that was written a few years back by a band called Cross Canadian Ragweed. It's a fun little country band that's played out throughout Oklahoma and Texas on a couple occasions that I've been able to see them. And one of their songs, one lyric reads, "You're always 17 in your hometown." It's true. As many of you know, I accepted my call to the ministry a little bit later in life, but I did it. And I was excited, and I was happy, and I was ready to go, and I was telling people everywhere, and they couldn't contain my excitement. It just so happened that a few weeks after I had made this decision, my 10-year high school reunion came up. That's right. And I decided to go. I need to explain something to you before. My parents moved away from Little Dumas, Texas 2 years after I had graduated. And so it had been 8 years since I had stepped foot in Dumas, Texas. It had been over 8 years since I had talked to anyone that I went to high school with. I had not seen, heard, knew nothing about no one in 8 years. And so I said to myself, well, we're going to go. We're going to catch up. It's going to be fun. It's going to be nice to see everyone again. And then the song lyric goes through my head yet again. Because as I walked into the park on that first night for the ice cream social as we all get together, I started to see faces, started to recognize people. They started to recognize me. And we came together and stories began to be shared. Conversations were fun. There were laughter. There was a few, I remember that. And then as conversations as adults now, the conversation usually turns to one question. And it usually is, so, what do you do? And I answered the question. I said, well, I'm in school now. I'm ready to become a minister. I've accepted the call. I'm ready to go out to preach the word. And the look on their faces, it was just shock. It was awe. Some started laughing because they thought it was a joke. A couple of them looked at me and said, you can't become a minister. Said, you remember the stories that we were telling? You starred in almost all of them, and they weren't good. But all weekend as I was there in Dumas and I was talking to everybody, this was the reaction. From the friends, to their parents, to teachers that I took in school, even the golf pro at the local country club as I went to play a round of golf, had that same weird look on his face. They all knew me as I was a teenager. None of them had seen me in 8 years, and yet they still knew who I was. They still knew the kind of person that I was going to be. 8 years, and yet they had still predetermined what my life was supposed to be, or better yet, what my life was not supposed to be. The kid in high school is gone, for the most part. But this is what Jesus was dealing with this morning as he goes home. No one was giving him the ability to grow in his life, but they were pigeonholing him from the outset because they knew who he was when he was younger. They knew his family. We know what type of person he is. And Jesus left in amazement at their lack of their belief. Their lack of belief that God couldn't use anyone in this world to make this world better, no matter who they were or who they are or where they're from. The Bible tells us that Jesus could do no deed of power in this hometown. He has essentially become powerless at this time. But his powerlessness is not about him. It's about those around him. It's about us. For when we are unwilling to believe that God can work through the lives of anybody on this earth, then we are limiting the power of God. We are limiting what God can do in this world and through the people of this world. But we are lucky because Christ, as this first half ends, it says, but he continued to heal a few as he walked out. Christ did not fully give up. He persisted. He kept his own faith and he continued to do the work of God, even as those who keep telling him that he can't do it. And so he sends out the apostles now, 2 by 2, to go out to spread the word, to share the love of God, because they have seen people be mean. They have seen people tell them that their word is not good enough. They've seen all this happen to Jesus, and yet they have seen him persist day in and day out, never stopping, continuing the mission that God gave them. And there is no reason to stop. Because just as we teach others not to stop believing, ourselves need to not stop believing. Jesus gave the authority to the 12, sending them out 2 by 2, letting them know some will accept and some will not. But you go in the world anyways. And Mark does an interesting thing. He gives the disciples a dress code. He tells them, this is how you should look. This is what you should take with you. Nothing more than the essentials. The 12 are to bring very little with them, just themselves. No baggage, nothing else with them on their trip. For they go out with open hands and open arms to welcome all whom they encounter. They do not go out promising riches to those who will turn and follow Christ. They do not go out asking for compensation to hear the good news of Christ. They just go out as they are, faithful children of God, teaching love to all who they hear. They bring no preconceived notions with them about who to talk to, about who is going to help spread the word of God, about who to accept or who can hear the words. They go out to speak to everyone. Not everyone will accept their message, but everyone will have the opportunity to hear the message. When we go out into this world and we carry things with us, when we bring our baggage along for the journey, we stop being able to see everyone. For we bring our social thoughts, we bring our personal thoughts, we bring our own preconceived notions about other people, other cultures, everything that we have. And it is then that we hurt the power of God in the world. For we limit what God can do by not allowing all to do the work of God. We are sent out by Christ with open arms and open hands to accept all who come before God. We do not turn people away because of their parents, because of where they live, because of how they live. That is taking God away from them. And we are called to bring God to the people. We do not let other people tell us what to think about certain groups. We do not let the past define who anyone is today. We go out in word and deed, teaching the good news, spreading the love of God to all the people in the world, door to door, person to person, bringing them love, bringing them acceptance, allowing them to feel the power of God around them, and then showing them that the power of God is within them so that they can go out and they can change this world with you for the betterment of all people. Amen.
Standing on the promises of